you will, turn to Colossians chapter 3 this evening. As you're turning there, I want to mention an update for Doug Scruggs. I got a message this morning as I was concluding the sermon that Doug had been able to watch and to worship with us from the hospital bed. And in fact, when I mentioned about touching the electric fence and getting shocked, he laughed just like you did. He chuckled, and I thought that was fantastic. Just, Doug, we love you, and just wanted to send that love to you. And also, he was able to move his left foot, and so just continue to pray for Doug Scruggs and for Dennis Washington and everyone that is struggling right now. And you know, in mentioning our sermon this morning, I wanted to pick up where the focus was in Colossians 3 and verse 17. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord. You know, we use that as an example of authority, but really, what is that verse saying? You think about whatever you do in word or deed, it's defining two things. It's what is your preach and what is your practice. The two things, they will go hand in hand. These two realms of speech and action, they encompass every area of our life. A truly Christian commitment incorporates them both, what we say and what we do. So your absolute everything is summed up, Christ, His name. So verse 17 is also a summary of verses 5 through 16, where two things are mentioned. What we put off in Christ and what we put on in Christ. And so for our devotional, we're going to simply look at those in verses 5 through 9. First of all, is what we put off. Specifically, we put off what is earthly. Put to death, verse 5, therefore, what is earthly in you: sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of God is coming. In these you too once walked, when you were living in them. But now you must put them all away. So he's saying put them off. Get rid of them. Throw them away. And what are they? Anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices. So with that key focus of whatever we do in word or deed, we do all in the name of the Lord, it shows that at one time we didn't. At one time we allowed the earth to permeate our lives. The worldly things, that's all we did. And you think about, once you put that off, and you're a different person now in Christ, that's going to cause those who saw you, those who recognized you from the past to say, what is different about this person? Paul understood what it was like walking in opposition to Christ. And he tells them further to, notice, put them all away. Notice what we just read, this idea of anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscene talk. This is all to be done, to be taken away from the life of a Christian. This can't continue as a Christian because we are representing Christ in His authority, but also upholding His reputation. So your practice and your preach has now changed in Christ. And that brings us to the second part of the passage that's summed up in our key verse. It's what we put on. Put on, since putting off is what is earthly, we put on what is out of this world. What is out of this world. Verse 10 says, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator. Here there is no Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave free, but Christ is all and in all. Notice it's out of this world because we are actually all united in Christ. It doesn't matter the background. It doesn't matter where we were brought up within this earth. We are all one in Christ. What's interesting is the earth sets up boundaries. We set up cultures that often can be in opposition to one another. But in Christ, those dividing walls are broken down. In the second place, we put on what will change this world. Verse 12 says, "Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts." In the world, you're not going to get compassion. You're not going to get this being willing to walk a mile in somebody's shoes, to be able to put yourself in someone's situation. That changes people. People want to know, why are you being compassionate? So we put on compassionate hearts, and with that's going to come kindness, then humility, meekness, and patience. I mean, you don't have to spend 30 minutes in rush hour traffic to realize that these are desperately needed in this world, and they're not the norm. Bearing with one another, verse 13. "And if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other. As the Lord has forgiven you, you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony." I think it's very important that the word harmony is used, because that brings us to the third point. We put on unity and harmony. "And let the peace of Christ," verse 15, "rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God." God is our audience as we together sing in harmony, in unity to Him. We recognize that He is the reason that we have unity to begin with. He is the reason that this world has changed for the better, and He is the reason that we are going to be out of this world for all eternity. In the third place, we've put off the world. It's the earth, earth, what is earthly, and we put on what is out of this world. In order to do this, we put off the law. In fact, in Galatians 3:23, beginning, it says, "Now before faith came, we were held captive under the law, imprisoned until the coming faith would be revealed. So then the law was our guardian until Christ came, in order that we might be justified by faith. But now that faith has come, we are no longer under a guardian." So because faith has come through Christ, we put off the law. And what do we put on? So we could put on Christ Himself. Verse 26 of Galatians 3, the following verse. "For in Christ Jesus you are all sons of God," not a select few. "You are all sons of God through faith. For as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ." So the question is plain this evening. Have you put off the world, your old self, by putting on Christ Himself in baptism? By doing this, you're going to be putting on what is out of this world. You're going to be putting on what will change the world. You will be putting on unity and harmony with one another. We realize that it's God that adds us to the body that is His Son. He is head. The question remains, have you put Him on tonight? Maybe you have, but you've allowed what is earthly to come back in. You've got to put that off. Maybe this invitation is for you, to encourage you to make sure your life is right with Him. If we can encourage you in any way, please respond now while together we stand and while we sing.